Stephen A. Smith responded back to Kevin Durant, calling him a clown. The full segment of his response is a few minutes. I'm going to play everything within portions as this video continues. I will read the full quote that Durant had to say about him, which is, "I don't understand how people even listen to Stephen A. I've been in the league for 18 years. I've never seen Stephen A. at a practice or a film session or a shoot around. I've never seen him anywhere but on TV talking curse word about players. He's a clown to me. He's always been a clown. You can write that too." I'll say this about Stephen A. I think he's very knowledgeable about the game of basketball. He has talked about his studies or his tutelage under Larry Brown, who is a Hall of Fame head coach, has an NBA championship with the 2004 Detroit Pistons, won NBA Coach of the Year in 2001. He led the Philadelphia 76ers along Allen Iverson to the NBA Finals in 01, I believe, as well. They lost to the Los Angeles Lakers. Stephen A. also has a relationship with Allen Iverson, covered him a lot in his early years in the NBA with Philadelphia. So I don't question Stephen A.'s knowledge of the game. It's just that he's on this show called ESPN First Take, and I think he has to take this barbershop style approach a lot of times that for some players, when they hear it, the way he expresses himself very passionately, you could say, it could come across like, oh, he's being disrespectful, even if that's not his intention. And so I'm going to get into that more. I'm going to play the clips and his response to what he said to Kevin Durant. All right, let's get into this.
I got bad news for Kevin Durant. If you're expecting me to reciprocate with that kind of pettiness and childishness, it's not going to happen. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players to have ever played this game. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's a two-time champion and two-time league finals MVP. And I've been on the record saying he's also a good dude. So if he wants to resort to that level, even though we're both grown men, and if he had something to say, he knows my number and he refrains from doing so, that's what he has to live with. But having said all of that, respectfully, Kevin Durant, could you stop lying, please? I've been an NBA reporter, and I was a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer as well. Kevin Durant has seen me in the locker room when he was at Oklahoma City. He has seen me in the locker room when he was at Golden State. He has certainly seen me at games throughout his career. But unfortunately for him, I don't have to be at shoot-around. And I don't have to be in the post-game locker room. I happen to have a hit show that's been #1 for 12 years.
I happen to have a hit show that's been #1 for 12 years straight. That is the crux of what's going on. As I was saying before, personally, I don't question his knowledge of the game and what he knows and what he could possibly get into depth with if he chose to. It's just that he has this show and there's an entertainment value that is needed in this. He admitted it to JJ Redick. This was around the time when JJ first started working with ESPN. He's doing the First Take show, and there was a conversation that him and Stephen A. were having on either Stephen A.'s podcast or some show JJ was doing. I can't remember, but I could recall the conversation because JJ was asking him, you seem to be different when you're on air versus behind the scenes. On air, you're a lot more animated and very expressive, but behind the scenes, you're more quiet and a bit reclusive. I'm paraphrasing. It was something along those lines. Stephen A's response was, well, when I'm on the show, I can't be boring. I can't just go up there and talk monotone or have this kind of real calm composure. I gotta really go out there and still be myself, but make it exciting. That's basically what Stephen A responded back to JJ with. Now, if you're somebody like myself, you could enjoy that barbershop style conversation while engaging in it yourself a lot of times with your homeboys and whatever. But I also love talking about the science of the game and breaking down the X and O's, the nuances. This is why on a lot of my videos, or I'll say some, more specifically the shorts, I break down the game and go through footage. This also gets into a conversation Stephen A had about his issues with Max Kellerman, where he said a lot of times he felt Max was talking over the audience, or he was saying things that were, let's say, complex and they couldn't really digest it, and he wanted Max to tone it down a little bit when it came to his in-depth analysis of what is going on. Now, to be honest, not to get too off track, that reminds me of the Lupe Fiasco song Dumb It Down, where he's explaining how the label wants him to simplify the message more in order to reach a wider audience. That's kind of the formula. And I guess for Stephen A, no matter what way you look at it, if he's #1, that's his goal and objective, and he's trying to keep that up. All right, now let me continue with the rest of his response.
The other thing that I would say is this, respectfully. Kevin Durant is going to have to answer this question. Who's allowed to talk about him? Charles Barkley played this game as a Hall of Famer. He got a Charles Barkley. Shannon Sharpe is a Super Bowl champion, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, and a Hall of Famer. He got at Shannon. He's gotten at players, the C.J. McCollums of the world, the Dennis Schroeders of the world, and others. He's gotten at fans. And oh, by the way, did it discreetly because he had, accounts that didn't reveal who he was, okay? So there's a whole bunch of things. So I don't understand it. It's contemporaries and colleagues. It's former players. It's present players. It's the media. It's the fans. It's whomever. Is anyone allowed to talk about Kevin Durant? Anybody at all? Because I don't understand it. I really don't get it. Anybody that has something to say isn't qualified to say something about him.
To be fair, Stephen A. does have a point when he talks about the amount of people that Kevin Durant has called out in the media. And to be fair to Kevin Durant, his position has never changed. It's always been the way that people are covering the game, how they are talking about it, expressing their opinion. Whether you think that's due to him being too sensitive, particularly when it comes to critique of his game, or him rightfully calling out the way the game is covered, let me know in the comment section. I think that's where the divide is going to be when it comes to a conversation like this. He also called out his own former teammate Kendrick Perkins as well over a playoff series where he told Kendrick Perkins, yeah, my starting center averaged 2 points and 3 rebounds, I think it was. And then him and Perkins had a little bit of a back and forth over Twitter. Another point that Stephen A. brought up was him getting into it with fans. I kind of like that as a fan. From my perspective, if you're going to argue back and forth with me, and it's a respectful conversation, of course, where we're talking about the game of basketball, that's really interesting to me to know that I could pick the brain of an NBA superstar, someone who's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, and I could actually share my opinion and see what he has to say and really actually have a conversation. Whether he disagrees with me and thinks I know nothing about the game of basketball based on what I'm standing on, just the fact that I could have that interaction, it's well for the game. I think that's great in terms of marketing. Why would the NBA not want to have that? And just in general, I would love to hear more of my favorite players be more open in their communication, as opposed to having to wait until they retire to really hear that other side of them, to see who they are. That's a large part of the reason why a guy like Anthony Edwards is so popular, not only since he has the talent of a superstar, but the way he speaks his mind, whether you like it or not, or you think he's way off or he's 100% correct, just that raw authenticity, it works really, really well with the fans.
He is one of the greatest players to have ever played this game. And regardless of his sensitivity and petulance and flagrant immaturity, he also happens to be a very, very good dude. I've always had profound respect for him. I'm the same guy, Kevin Durant, that you asked to show up on your show, The Boardroom. I'm the same guy that you executive produced a documentary on Stephon Marbury and featured me in it. I'm that same guy that you said you don't want anybody to listen to, yet you had me on stuff you executive produced for people to listen to. It's unfortunate that no matter how old he gets, his sensitivity seems to heighten with it, and his maturity doesn't, but that's something he has to live with, not me. I respect him. He's a treasure to the game of basketball. I love seeing him play, and I sincerely wish that he doesn't get swept again in the playoffs like he has 2 of the last 3 years.
Yeah, I'm wondering where this really stemmed from for Kevin Durant just to come out and say, man, Stephen A's a clown, and you could quote me on that. Ever since the comments Stephen A made about Kevin Durant doing the weakest move by a superstar ever, joining the Golden State Warriors team after being up 3-1, that Warriors team 73 wins. And I do agree, as a fan, I didn't like seeing that. It was just too much in terms of, we know the outcome already, and as a viewer, I didn't, want to see all of that, and I'm sure people agree as well. But ever since Stephen A made that weakest superstar move, I do remember seeing him and Durant having sit-downs and seeming cordial or making jokes kind of with each other. So yeah, I'm just interested how this all came about. Nonetheless, hit me up in the comment section and let me know your whole take on this ordeal. Are you rocking with Stephen A or Kevin Durant? Neither. Do you feel what I'm saying? Let me know. And as always, salute for listening. Peace.